Welcome to Are You Set Up for Sales Success Series Part 2. Last week, we covered off 3 fundamental things that you need to have in place in order to scale your sales. Today, I'm going to cover Part 2, which is copy that converts. This isn't 100% essential, but it is definitely going to help support you if your sales are not where you would like them to be. Then implementing what I'm going to share with you in today's episode will definitely help. Last week, we talked about making sure that you had a visibility strategy in place so that people know about you. I also shared with you that you need to understand your exact sales formula. This comes down to the 3 metrics that matter. So traffic, conversion rate, and average order value, and knowing exactly how much traffic you are actually needing to get to your website in order to meet your sales goals. And then lastly, getting that traffic to your website, having a consistent, reliable process to do that. Today, I want to talk about what happens when that traffic lands on your website. Now, what I want to stress here is you do not need to have a professional designed website. I often hear from new founders who have just launched their website and they think that something's broken because people aren't buying. That comes down to the traffic, whether that traffic is a mixture of new or returning, because returning visitors will convert at a much higher rate and therefore you need less of them. So when you're first starting out, that can be really, really challenging and quite deflating actually, because you're getting all these people and you think that you're getting enough people to make sales, but actually you need a lot more than somebody who is established. So I often see people posting in Facebook groups, asking for advice around their website and getting all this feedback that, quite frankly, can be quite confusing. It is often not down to the website, and I've said in this podcast previously that shitty websites actually still sell. It is down to your marketing, and it is down to the wording that you use. Again, this is not a must, but it's 100% going to help to convert your customers or increase your conversion rate if your conversion rate is not where it needs to be. So let's talk about the very first point, which is when they get to your product description. Do your product descriptions on your website actually just talk about a whole lot of features around that product? Or do they actually talk to the problem that it solves or the desire that it fulfills or how it does both of those? Because every single product either solves a problem or fulfills a desire or both. Now, this is about knowing your customer intimately because you're not going to know what problem you're solving or what desires you're fulfilling if you don't know your customer intimately. So that is absolutely key. You need to ensure that you are solving a problem or fulfilling a desire that your customer actually cares about, right? So you might care about it, but is it actually what your customer cares about? And you need to be able to articulate it ideally in their words. I think people who sell at market have a real advantage in this space because if they're actively listening to what people are saying as they come past their stall, they're picking up things, they're talking about them. I used to have like a little notebook next to me where I was standing in a market, and I would note down different phrases or words that they would use to describe the products that they were picking up and touching and feeling. So if you are actively at markets, I would definitely recommend doing that. Listen to the way that people speak about your products. What are the actual words that they are using? Features will explain what a product is, but benefits actually explain why it matters. So every website product description ideally should solve a problem or fulfill a desire or both. And I want you to review your descriptions through the eyes of your ideal customer and ask yourself this question: what does this do for me? Right? Are you speaking to a problem that they recognize and actually care about in the language that they would use? Or are you just giving a rundown of a whole lot of features? Because there's definitely a real difference. Let me give you a couple of examples. And I think I have talked about this on the podcast previously, but it is really, really important. And as I say, this is not an essential for every single website, but if your conversion rate is under 3%, it's definitely worth considering adding this into your product descriptions and talking about it more as a benefit and what's in it for your customer rather than just a whole lot of features. So let me give you an example. I sell houseplants, and you might think, well, houseplants don't solve a problem or fulfill a desire, or maybe they fulfill a desire, but it doesn't solve a problem. Actually, houseplants do both. Let me explain. So it solves a problem because if I have a really boring corner, it's bland, it needs a bit of life, it needs a bit of pizzazz, then plants help to do that, right? Plants help to turn a house into a home. So the problem that they have is they've got this empty space and they want to fill it with greenery. Or the desire they may have is to bring the outdoors inside. And I've found, because I know my customers intimately, I've got to know, why they love buying houseplants, because some people love them, some people don't care for them, right? So why do people buy houseplants? And what I have learned in talking to my ideal customers and talking to people who actually purchase from me is a lot of them are empty nesters. A lot of them really enjoy caring and nurturing and knowing that they have cared for the plant and then they have seen it grow. So they love that. And I've actually found a lot of them are shift workers or they have really demanding jobs. And so they want to come home to their haven. And plants help them to feel like they are living in a haven. So can you see how I'm talking more to the problems that it solves and the desire it fulfills, rather than saying, it's a luscious green, it's got shiny leaves. They actually don't care about that. I'm really talking to why they actually love plants. So come home to your luscious living room that brings the outdoors inside. And this plant is easy to care for, so you'll absolutely love having it in your living room and seeing it flourish year after year. Can you see how that's slightly different than just talking about all of the features or parts of it? Okay, I'll give you another example. So let's say that you sell eyeshadow. You're not just selling X number of eyeshadow shades. Instead, you need to identify what problem it solves or desire it fulfills. Sounds deep, but hear me out. So perhaps your eyeshadow is easy to apply and it doesn't fall down onto your cheeks when you apply it. That is a common problem for some eyeshadows, right? So it's identifying what are the common problems and does your product actually fix that? So we've shared a common problem that your product solves. What about the desire? It also happens to last most of the day so that when you leave work at 5 p.m. for drinks with the girls, it still looks like it's been freshly applied. That's kind of a solved problem and a desire. They want it to last a long time. They don't want it to be gone by their 10 a.m. coffee break, right? So can you see how I've weaved in solving a problem and fulfilling a desire with a product description rather than just talking about all of the features that actually your future buyer doesn't actually care about? They really don't care about that unless it's kind of talking to the size and, the exact dimensions, which may be something that is required for the product that you sell because it's very hard to show size via a website. Whereas when you've got it in person, you can pick it up and you can, touch it and feel it and see exactly what the size is. Which leads me really nicely to our next point in the series. So once the value is really clear, we need to remove the risk that stops a first-time buyer. So again, this is about knowing your buyer intimately. So what I want you to really focus on in this space is adding trust to your product descriptions, because more proof means less perceived risk. And I want you to remember that people are kind of sheep, right? They buy what others say are good. They follow the herd, right? You've got to remember that a first-time buyer does not know whether your product will be good and whether you're going to deliver or whether the purchase is actually safe. We are absolutely in a trust recession, and people are not as willing to hand over their hard-earned dosh as much as they once were. So trust signals answer any doubts really, really quickly on a website page. You want to use relevant trust icons such as money back guarantee, or maybe, you have an eco-friendly product. Maybe you want to note that it's made in your country. Maybe you want to include secure checkout or 5-star rated. You want to show the actual number of reviews on each product, not just a row of stars, but how many reviews each product has. And you really want that to be a priority of yours, to get as many reviews as possible. You can also do things like add user-generated content. You can note a clear returns policy and guarantees. And look, if conversion is low and review volume is low, building more proof, so getting more reviews, should be a real priority for you, because trust signals should be visible without making the customer have to hunt for them. They should land on that page and it should immediately speak to them that others love your product. And when they see that others love your product, they're going to feel less risk in actually purchasing it. If there's no reviews or very few reviews, you don't have any trust icons, you're not sharing a returns policy if that's something that is important for the product that they're purchasing, they're not going to buy it. They're just going to leave your website because they can't see that it is a product that is of quality that others love. Proof really tells them that they can trust the product. And then your imagery, so what you actually show on your website, helps them to be really clear on what they are getting before it arrives. So let's talk about image quality, because this is an area that I definitely see a lot of websites are not really meeting the mark. Again, you do not need a professional photographer to have amazing photos. It's less about that, although that can definitely help. It's more about showing it in every single angle, showing it as though the customer was using it in their life. So having not only plain product images with no background, so just on a white background, showing different angles of it, showing up close, but also showing it as a lifestyle image, so how they would actually use it in their life. So if it was a handbag, showing somebody with it on their shoulder. That way they can see the exact size. It's not that they're going to have this fear of, oh, it looks great, but I'm going to get it, and then it's going to be half the size that I actually think it is. Because even if you have dimensions on your product page, they're probably not going to go and grab a ruler and, see, is that the right size? So having more photos rather than less is 100% going to help, not hinder your sales. I recommend as many as you can to really be able to show it in its entirety. You've got to remember that if somebody was to walk into a retail shop, they can pick that product up. They can look inside it if it was a handbag. They can look underneath it. They can feel the texture of the material. So having really up close images to show the texture, having even rulers with measurements, and then also showing it as a lifestyle product, so how it would actually look and fit inside their lifestyle, is really going to help you to sell that product and to give your future buyer the confidence that what they are buying is what they're going to get, right? So that brings me to the end of part 2 of this Are You Set Up for Sales Success series. Let's just quickly recap what I've shared today. So if your website conversion rate is not at 3% or above, you would totally benefit from checking that you aren't just talking to the features of your products, but sharing the benefits of what it solves, the problem it solves, or the desire it fulfills. What is the difference in their life if they purchase your product? Once you know why people buy your product, articulating this in their words is what you want here, right? So I want you to check your product descriptions. Next is having enough product imagery that helps them to see exactly what they get. So think about how they would view it in a store. Every single angle, checking the size is clear, showing it in actual use so that size is not a guess or a concern for them. And then adding trust to your product pages, ensuring that the product page is designed for scanners, not for readers, and instantly shows that it is a trusted product. If you don't have many reviews and you double down on that, watch your conversion rate lift. That's exactly what I did when growing my plant business. I worked really hard to get as many reviews as possible because people follow others. And the more reviews you have, the more you'll be able to increase your conversion rate, which means you need less people to your website to make a sale. It's a no-brainer. Value needs to be evident before the price, especially if your products are priced higher than your competitors. Price becomes the objection when the value is not clear by scanning the page. By the time someone reaches the price, your copy, your imagery, your proof, your product story, so the problem it solves and the desire that it fulfills, should already have made the case, right? It should be really, really clear. If you are more expensive than a competitor, then you should be explaining what the customer receives for that difference. Is it better materials? Is it ethical production? Is it specialist design, longer life, better support? What actually is it that makes it different? Don't apologize for the price, but make the benefit of paying it really clear. When value feels earned, customers judge the whole offer rather than comparing numbers alone, right? And make sure that you're doing this in a scannable way. If it's all in the text, they'll see the price before they actually read the value. Start with your best sellers. You don't need to update every single product description to make a difference here. Just work through it. Start with your most viewed products first and then move on to others. Look, I hope you found part 2 helpful. If you did, I would love you to share this with a business bestie. It helps me to grow and it helps others to grow as well. So join me next week for part 3, where I'm going to talk about how you can reduce purchase friction during the customer journey. I'll see you then.